Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got from LiquidMind, the company that really helps you create vision as a leader, right? For those of you that say, I want to be a leader and create vision where you and your staff and your teams know where they're going, right? On mission critical ideas. Today we've got Bryan Smeltzer with us, who's really going to help guide us down that path and really give us that vision and help you create that with you and your group. Bryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. Great to be with you today.
People talk about vision, right? They say vision, but what's the question you asked me before I got on here?
Well, if you were to be in a room with five people, five leaders of businesses, let's say, and you ask them a whiteboard question to say, what is vision? You think you get five different answers from that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I for sure. It's one of those words that gets tossed around like I need to have this, but I don't know that many people understand what it means to have vision.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. When you talk about vision, I've got two books out there, The Visionary Brand, which is kind of wrapped around what it takes to become a visionary brand. And having been inside of some of these iconic brands, people wonder, what is it like in the four walls of being inside of a visionary brand, but much less being inside there with a visionary leader. Oakley's a great case of that, where I had the fortunate task of being with Oakley, as well as being with the visionary Jim Gennard, who actually founded the company. And so it's an interesting question that people get with vision, because it is, you get five different answers. But when you look at true visionaries, Anthony, there's really, in the Visionary Leader book that I just released, there's very few, even over the centuries, and people kind of say, what does a visionary? And people immediately think of current leaders. And Steve Jobs certainly was. I think Elon is, but you got to go all the way back to Socrates. And, what did he encompass as far as a visionary leader? And a lot of leaders are still carrying his wisdom to today as a visionary leader. So it's a lot of different things that are a makeup of a leader, and very few have it.
Well, I mean, how many people know, are they trying to master money, or are they trying to master their clients, their client deliverable, right? I mean, when you look at Steve Jobs, what he really did is he made something sexy, user-friendly, easy to operate. The product was what drove the brand, and he had relentless commitment to making sure that of its perfection. You look at guys like Elon Musk, who, you look at Tesla and what they've done. I mean, it's a car that's just, I politically, I don't care what people are saying. The car that he creates is amazing, right? The electric vehicles have never been, they're better than anything that's out there. The perfection of the work that they put into it. He's mastered engineering and first principles and stopped with all the, stuff that misfocused, and he focused on creating great products. How many people are out there are chasing money rather than mastery of the division or the product or the idea that they're growing?
I don't find, if you're a true visionary, I profiled 17 visionaries in my Visionary Leader book, and I found really none of them cared about money. It was just an accumulation of it through their passion and what they're doing, and being able to execute that through others. As hard as they may be on people, and Steve's a great example of that through Apple, where he's very hard on people. But at the end of the day, when you interview, what's interesting with Steve, and I profiled him in the Visionary Leader, what's interesting with Steve is that when you interview people that were part of that inner circle with Steve, the pirate ship, the pirate team that was with Steve, and they'll all say, yeah, he was tough. But at the end of the day, he executed what his vision actually was. And very few visionaries, that when you look at a visionary, I always caution about future casting, and Steve was great with that. He had the ability not only to envision what the future looked like and what products were going to be and what people were going to need, but he also was able to express that with passion and being able to drill that down to where everybody inside of Apple felt they were part of that execution strategy that he put in place with every product that he did. I miss that with Apple. It's not there anymore. I'm sorry, it's not there anymore. And I'm so thankful that we have books and we can read about Steve and we can read about what he did, because we can take the execution leadership of what he had and being able to apply that today. because we have very few left. And Elon certainly is one of those. But Elon, if you look back, and I profiled Elon Musk as well, you made a great point there, Anthony, where you said, I took some criticism for it as well. But I go, hey, at the end of the day, he is a visionary. Look at what he's accomplished. And you can say all you want, but he took his visionary lead from Steve. So it's interesting how it's all passed down through generations. And Steve took some of his visionary prowess from Henry Ford. And you look back at the stories of Henry Ford, and it was interesting how he was a visionary, and he was able to apply that regardless of what generation he's from.
Well, I mean, look, anytime you break through or want to break through in an industry, it feels like, look, here's the idea, right? We're going to grow the idea, and we got to walk through, fire and glass and open the abyss. And we have to walk through, I've been in the construction business, and we've been working on how to go from dirt to dishes in 30 days, right? How to build ground up buildings in 30 days. So like get rid of all the nonsense that construction is and all the BS that's out there. And you can tell that every time you make another turn, right? You make another turn in it, you're right up people's spines, right? There's no way, they can't see it. And then all of a sudden they break through, and you're like, whoa. Right. Something that I was in a room with some guys from a big hamburger brand, and we're doing these remodels, and they were like 8-10 week projects. Right. The whole idea was, there's no way you can do this. No way you can do it. And these are legacy guys who've been building that brand for 50 years. And I'm like, hey guys, we're going to do this in 14 days. And they're like, no way. There's no way. They was an uproar. There was an uproar. And I'm like, listen, we've already got 60 of them done, right, in another region. Right. And we've done them. And here's how we've done them. And here's what happens. Then all of a sudden there was this one little bit, you're crazy until you're not, right? And then all of a sudden they could start to see that, hey, there's a possibility there. And I think that's what happens with great visionaries, is that you really guide people through you're freaking crazy. There's no way it can do this. They just got to be able to trust that you're going to be able to get there.
Yeah, I found a great story, and it's one that everybody can relate to even to this day, fortunately for us. In the Visionary brand, I actually outlined that, what I call this ecosystem that Apple built, what was built off of Steve's original product. People were looking at this. Is a great example, Anthony, of having this, what I call future casting, future vision of what you want to achieve that nobody else sees, that you're able to convey that story and have executable steps in order to commercialize the product. And the product I'm talking about was the iPod. Everybody thought when Steve said 1,000 songs in your pocket, it was a product. Steve knew better. Steve didn't care about the iPod. What he cared about was absolutely disrupting the music industry. So when you look at that ecosystem that Steve built, and we're still living in it today, Steve looked at it as disrupting music, not having something you have 1,000 songs in your pocket. He certainly wanted to make it more accessible to people. And his beauty was simple as sophisticated. And when you look at it, he just felt it was too damn complicated what everybody was trying to get music. They were doing LPs, they were doing cassette tapes, they were doing 8-tracks, whatever it was. It just wasn't a system that was not working. And it pissed a lot of people off, right, in the music industry. When he said, listen, I'm going to give you 99 cents, and I guarantee you, you're going to be making way more money than you ever would on how the current model is working. And by design, it did. They made billions of dollars more off of Steve's strategy. But Steve had the vision where everybody was, to your point, Anthony, everybody's pissed off about it until the visionary actually executes it and says, hey, the vision is now reality. And now we have the iPod, which has gone away, the iPod integrated into the iPhone, and then he took over the phone industry. So it's all this ecosystem that Steve had where he built this step by step. And I talk about it in detail in the Visionary brand, where I talk about, wow, it's just a product, yes, but it's an ecosystem that he built off his vision.
So at the time I was working for Blockbuster Video, right? Now remember going, Blockbuster, going there on this Friday night, and you and your family digging through all the videos. And I was working for Blockbuster, and they, it was a great brand to work for. And they said, hey, we're going to do this thing called Block Music. Now, the idea was going to be very similar with Steve. They kind of saw the visionary of Steve Jobs, of the vision of that. And they were able to really see that, hey, could we create CDs with your top 15, with your favorite 15 songs on it? You'd go in there, they'd have maybe the top 40 CDs out there. At the time, we're still selling CDs. And then you could make customized ones with your favorite 15 on there. And again, it's one of those spots where the idea was there, right? But breaking through that, the industry wasn't there. They fought it. They fought it. We opened up, I don't know, a dozen or a couple dozen of them, and we were ready to go. And this was a great idea. Today it would have been a great idea, right? You could have got them, except for CDs are gone. But at the time, it was legendary. But the industry there wasn't enough vision to push it through, right?
Yeah.
There was this fight back, and the deal makers were holding on to too much. Like, the record labels were all like, hey, no. We got to sell all 15 songs on this album for us. And they couldn't see that 99 cents made sense at the time.
Yeah. And we talk to, Anthony, entrepreneurs, and your audience are entrepreneurs kind of looking for answers to a lot of questions they have, especially going through COVID and where we're at today. And I get that question a lot, is that, hey, how do I disrupt the industry? And it's a harder question to ask versus to actually answer that question, because you need to have this future casting of what you want to disrupt within your industry and how you're going to have that defined point of difference. Incrementalism is not innovation.
You burn out. You can't quite get there. I mean, that whole incremental thing, it's kind of like you never quite get there.
I love Seth Godin's quote where he said safe is risky. And that's really the difference between somebody that's an innovator versus somebody that just has a commodity. I don't even call it a brand. It's just, Skechers is a great example of a great product, but it's not a brand. I mean, if your whole base of your business is built off of imitating others, you're never a leader in your industry. As a result of that, technically you can't disrupt. And that's where we were with Oakley, with Jim Gennard, was he didn't care about the competition. And that's many times when I talk to entrepreneurs, Anthony, I said, listen, you need to not only think outside the box, but you got to not really care what your competitors are doing, because you need to find innovation. And that's how Nike got their next leg up. When, many people don't remember, this wasn't all that many years ago that Nike was kind of on a resuscitator. And I was back at K-Swiss, and when we were talking about products, Nike actually came up with a product called Flyknit. But it was a complete disruption in the industry. But the base of the entire product that people don't understand is that, how do you build a knit shoe? They thought they were freaking crazy. You can't build a shoe that isn't leather. And Nike actually built a structure around the shoe that was built off of fly wire construction that came from bridge construction. So they put their designers out in, and I talk to entrepreneurs about this all the time, especially on product side, Anthony, is get outside your four walls. Embrace Mother Nature and embrace other things that can be adaptable technologies you can build into your product, because stress structures were built into Nike's Flywire technology, and they were able to disrupt the industry. And we said at K-Swiss, if there was a shoe that actually a consumer could run to the store, go shopping, and then go back out, put their groceries away, and run again in the same shoes, we were done. And that's really what happened. We went from $500 million down to $100 million, and that whole $400 million got chunked back into Oakley's top line.
Well,
into Nike's top line.
And you really look at what they did to the shoe world, right? I mean, you went from this heavy shoe, this leather shoe, that now today a Nike shoe is, I mean, their price point works, their style works. They're able to change styles so fast and keep up to the marketplace. In fact, be the innovator of the marketplace. They've taken these products and this product material science to another level. The material sciences have become their winning formula, right? I mean, now they have shoe structure and shoe design and colors and fabrics that are part of that innovation, right? I mean, they've taken that material science, which was their breakthrough, going from leather to this gear you're talking about, right? And now today, if you really look at it, those shoes and those products, so the question really starts to look at, if you're a baker, if you're a construction guy, what are the things that you can do, right? Because I really applied to you're listening. This morning you're brushing your teeth and you're listening to us right now, right? What are you going to do today in the office that has a breakthrough? And look, the world's not looking for more people to be the same. They're tired of it. Who are you going to be bold enough to go break through today and be in this world, right? I mean, where are you going to take the material ideas to really break through and really create this world that says, all right, look, I'm not going to be the same, and here's how we're going to do it, and grab at exactly what Bryan's talking about. Grab at everything. Correct. Everything's at play here, right? Great vision, great leaders, are able to take the entire world, right? If the world's out there, this is the problem you're trying to solve. You can bring all of the world's opportunity, right? Now, you and I were talking before we got started that a lot of entrepreneurs come to the game and they're a mess, right? They don't have access to the billions of ideas because most of them are carrying a bunch of luggage and crap around with them, and they don't have that freedom to see the world in a bigger picture, right? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, we talked about it, Anthony, and one thing that we really focus on with LiquidMind, and we whiteboarded as well, we understand these entrepreneurs that we talk with every day, Anthony, is, everybody's got business issues. But behind the scenes, having been an entrepreneur myself, running an apparel brand for 10 years, selling to a VC firm, by the time you want to sell this thing is the time you're tapped out. And you always get at a point for most entrepreneurs where they are kind of tapped out, even when they're in full business. Sometimes when they're doing their best, they're tapped out. And what we tried to do with them is understand, and having been there in their shoes, saying, how do I continue driving this engine while I'm tapped out? And we find many personal issues, not only with family, time with family, having also the true ingrained faith to know that things will turn out the best, and you have a higher power out there. And I embrace that in the visionary brand, visionary leader as well, that there's a higher power of faith that just so they know, and your listeners hear this, in the visionary leader and the visionary of the brands that I've been with, Oakley, K-Swift, TaylorMade, Nike, all of these brands, people want to know, how did they continue to build? All of these visionary leaders had faith. And the faith has nothing to do with their business acumen. It had to do with their personal acumen and being reassured that through family and faith, that they were going to get through these issues and barriers beyond what the normal human being can, because they have somebody else that's helping them get through these issues. And I find that talk about it or not, we're very proactive in talking about it, because every visionary leader I profile has had this. So if you don't, you're in the minority, and most people think they don't like to talk about it. They don't like to address it, but it's one thing. Lead Like Jesus is a great book to read for anybody that wants to follow that path. And I find that's one thing, Anthony, that's super important to talk about, is people are sitting in a lonely, dark room as entrepreneurs. To your point, they don't have access to billions of dollars like most entrepreneurs do. I said, I hate the word entrepreneur being thrown around so damn loosely, because for me, you need to start with nothing and build something versus having something and build more. That's not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who has been hit, and somebody who's fallen flat on their face and gotten up many times. And you look at Thomas Edison, where 9,999 times he said, I have not failed. I just found a way it doesn't work. And 10,000, he invented the light bulb. So those are things you have to embrace as an entrepreneur and understand those are necessities to be visionary.
Well, in a world where the connection from human to higher power is lacking, right? There's this missing part of it. If I knew that no matter what I did, it was exactly what I was supposed to be doing, like I'm being guided, in a world where that's not said or trained or understood, right? In a world where today, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, and I've been there. Look, I've been there. I've been the one who's been off kilter and not have that relationship with my higher power in a place that says, look, no matter what I do, I'm always being guided. There's a reason for what I'm going through. The troubles, the anxieties, the stuff that I'm going through, these are me pecking my way out of a shell, right? To be able to get blood to my wings, to be able to do the things so I can fly later on. And I'm being guided to do this. Now, I think it takes some work, right? It takes a little bit of work when we start to look at our values, one, getting to understand those parts and pieces, right? Understanding that, hey, you are being guided. There is a perfect, you are not alone. You've got a higher power, and get a relationship with that, whatever you want to call it. If it's Jesus or Muhammad or whatever your brand, whatever your higher power is, and whatever the name of that is for you and your group and your culture, fantastic. Now, if I know that and I'm guided by that and I swing for the fences, now I got to start driving in order to get there, right? I've got a lot of luggage that people carry. How many of us carry a whole Samsonite luggage. You guys remember the Samsonite commercials, the ones with the gorilla? You take the big luggage and throw it around. You remember those commercials?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how many people are dragging around with them? They're shipping containers worth of, stories and family trauma and history and culture and community stuff that they're literally dragging on their shoulder. And you're trying to have the energy and the excitement to go be in the world of an entrepreneur, but you're carrying this big shipping container worth of nonsense. How many of us have got to drop that? And I think that takes some work. I mean, I've noticed that a lot of great entrepreneurs need to be able to work on that part first.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just having that what I call it, Anthony, is I call it this foundation of being a visionary leader. There's foundational elements and principles that all visionary leaders have. And that faith is an element of that foundation that's kind of a pinnacle to what these visionary leaders need to have. But beyond that, to your point, is that you still need to have this not only vision, future casting, also relentlessness and passion around what you're doing. Because we talk about Steve, and Steve looked at himself in the mirror every day and said, am I enjoying what I'm doing? And am I making a difference in this world and making a dent in this universe? And you need to ask yourself that same question as well, because passion translates to vision. If you don't have passion, the ability for you to set this transitory vision of where you want to take your company, your brand, and more importantly, your team. Because all entrepreneurs, in addition to having faith, have had the ability to translate their passion through their team and execute it through them and be humble enough to step back and give them credit. And as a result of that, I haven't come across one visionary that I've either been with, around, or profiled in my book that hasn't accepted the fact that you need to be humble because of the fact they've got another idea in the back of their head as to where they want to take it. If Steve would have just stopped, and I'll give you just a quick example.
Sure.
If Steve would have just stopped at the iPod, he probably would not have given credit to his team like he did, but he didn't care. He did not care. He wanted to see the smile on the face of the people when that was actually commercialized and they put their name on the box. Steve, when he invented the Macintosh, had them put their name on the inside of the casing because he wanted that to be legendary. Few people know about that. But Steve and these visionaries, every single one of them, Anthony, have not just one idea. They've got a bigger universe that they want to conquer. And that's what entrepreneurs need to understand is, in order to be visionary, it's not Sony with the Walkman. Sony's a one-hit wonder that failed as far as I'm concerned. You can say they sold 200 million Walkmans. That's a success in some people's eyes, but they didn't do anything else beyond that. So Steve had a universe of ideas, not just one.
No, look, I think that's the spot is he could see it. He could see a world where there's ease of use, the product viability. And look, and a lot of you entrepreneurs, if you're not seeing that, like if you're out there going, first of all, you're not an entrepreneur because you're chasing money, right? Here, chasing money does not make you an entrepreneur. Hey, I'm out there trying to figure out how to make my million. I want to go get rich. Great. You and everybody else out there, right, wants to go get rich. Of course you do. No, being poor sucks. But look, if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you have to create something of value for others. Right. And Steve could see a world where everybody could have, in a world where the only place he had a computer was in these massive, these big schools or colleges, or, there was only, these big rooms. He could see one in every single person's home, right? He could see that, right? When you as an entrepreneur can see something that others can't see, right? You're the architect of an idea. You're taking it out of the ether. And you're bringing it into reality, right? And you can see the path to do that. Now, if you're not seeing that, look, if you as an entrepreneur aren't able to see that, if all you're thinking about is payroll all day, that's not the game, right? The game has got to be about seeing the idea and bringing people to that vision. Now, how do we how does that all work, right? I think a lot of it goes back to what we just talked about, which is drop the rocks, get yourself to a place where you can start to free flow in the universe, right? And especially today in a world where you've got AI, it's leveling the platform for all of us, right? Today, the AI tools give us the ability to solve those problems. I mean, literally every podcast I've had this week has been somehow how AI and AI tools could solve, dozens of problems that you as an entrepreneur right now go out there and find the problem, see the vision about solving it, and now bring that to the game with the tools that are available like never before.
Yeah, we talked about it, Anthony, and I'll say we talked to entrepreneurs with all that we have out there. And I think currently the distraction number now is, I think, 2 seconds. For you've got 2 seconds of attention span with somebody to get interested in what the hell you're talking about, or if it's something that they really feel they're going to get value from. And what we do is we take it back from to that ground floor of talking to entrepreneurs. It's a simple question we ask them, and we say, what does your day look like? And I will tell you 9 times out of 10, Anthony, they can't tell us what. They'll just go, I'm busy. Well, I go, what the hell does that mean? I mean, says, how are you executing? What's your plan? And what's your vision? So if you take the step back and you say, well, I'm just too busy, I can't do this. And we hear that all the time, right? From entrepreneurs who say, well, I'm just too busy, I can't get this done. Well, it's because you don't manage your day-to-day properly. And for everything that's going around you, you need to unplug, what I call unplug. And if you look again, and I'll give more advice to the entrepreneurs out there, is that unplugging is the number one most beneficial thing you can do as a leader. Unplug each day for an hour, start, and just think, and put pen to paper and shut the lights off and just focus on what you're looking to achieve. And your team will be better for it. Your company, your brand, your product will be better for it. And you'll be ahead of 90% of the leaders that are out there in the industry. I guarantee it.
Well, let's just break that down. All right, look, entrepreneurs, this is the game that I want to dive into it. I'm going to call you out. For those of you that sit up all night long and you think that playing video games until until the wee hours of the night, or watching Netflix or death scrolling is going to get you to a place where, I'm just relaxing my brain. You're bullshitting yourself, right? You're just getting high. By the way, you might as well go do a line, or you might as well go drink some booze, or you might as well, do something. It's literally the same thing. Right? For those of you that go, look, I really want to be able to get vision or get clarity of vision or get an idea. For those that are waffling, that can't see something. For those of you that all have that confusion question, I can't see it. I can't see. It's because your brain is cluttered with crap. And if you stop that, look here, get rid of the 4 hours at night. Anything after 9:30, if other than maybe you're out there trying to find yourself a wife. Right? Maybe you're trying to get yourself a spouse out there, and I'm not sure that's going to be found after 9:30. But my guess is that take those hours, go to bed, and wake up earlier and give yourself a chance in the morning. Right? Get to those spiritual practices, those physical practices, those places where you can be with your mind, and the answers start to show up.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden, I get clarity of vision. When I'm at the gym in the morning at 5:30 and that door opens and I hit that gym and I'm pumping some weights, the best ideas come to me. Right? When I'm shaving at 5 o'clock in the morning to get myself ready to go to the day, those questions come to me. Those answers come to me. My higher power speaks to me in a way that's different there. It doesn't speak to me while I'm playing video games. I promise you. I've not once played Fortnite and had a vision come to me during that moment. Now, I'm not saying that those are all bad, because look, I don't believe anything's bad in the world, and I do think that some of that video game stuff is training the brain to go faster, maybe, but it could be just as much a dope as real dope is.
Yeah, and to kind of extend upon that point, so we're helping entrepreneurs out here, Anthony, is that when you look at executable strategies and people saying they don't have enough time, which everybody does, and we both know that we call them out and say that's BS. Yes, you do. If you put it on a whiteboard, they can't tell you what they did during the day, but they blew 8 hours. Well, I worked 10 hours today. To me, it's never been effective or efficient to say that I worked 12 hours. I don't really give a shit. I says, in the 12 hours, what did you do? What did you actually complete? What did you actually move further towards your goal? Stayed static or gone back? There's only 3 directions you can go.
Let's get here. So stay right here. So look, I'm going to stop, Bryan, for a reason. your brain is going to want to pass over this. So what he's talking about is getting rigorously honest about the stuff you're doing. Listen to me. This is what Bryan's talking about is key to what you want to get done here. So Bryan, go back to this. So you're either doing what? You're either going which way?
We're either going forward, we're staying in neutral, or we're going in reverse.
Right. So almost if you could almost have a chart, a graph, right? A little X, Y axis. So the things that I'm doing right here are either A, bringing me up, or B, keeping me neutral, or C, taking me down, right? Here. Now, how could you get rigorously honest about it? Let me give you an example.
Yep.
Today, I can't see behind this shirt because it's cold out there. I've got a blood glucose monitor on, right? I went and bought look, my blood sugar has never been better. But if I want to be rigorously honest about what I'm working on health-wise, today I now can track exactly what goes in my body and how it affects it. There's no lying. I literally have a graph on my phone that will show exactly how my blood sugar is doing throughout the day. Now, can you do the same thing in business? What's the thing that you need to do what Bryan's talking about, right? Bryan's got it's crystal clear. Either A, you're going up, B, you're staying neutral, or C, you're going down. How do you get rigorously honest about that conversation?
Yeah, and the great thing about this, Anthony, is that when we talk to entrepreneurs, they can actually do it themselves. They can actually look at, number one, what are you doing for the future? What are you doing for the present? And what have you done in the past to achieve what you want to do in the future? And when I say going forward, it means having a plan to go forward. It means taking a step by step. You can't jump a mountain. As I always put the visual up there, and I say, take it step by step. You have to ensure that you're not taking one step forward, two steps back. And that's really what I see with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'll give you a good example. One of the most effective things and there's two effective things that I've seen with all visionaries and leaders that have changed the course of whether they're successful or not successful. One is setting aside that time on a daily basis to focus and concentrate by themselves away from everybody. And a greatest story from that as well is that when Steve wanted to do that, he got the hell out of the office and he took his shoes off and he walked in grass for an hour every day by himself. Nobody bothered him because it was his focus time. Now, the other thing you can do as well, the second thing you can do as a leader is there's a connecting point between the physical and also your brain. When you want to take steps towards moving forward, as we talked about, not staying neutral in the past, write down on a daily basis steps you need to take on an hour-to-hour level. Write it down. Don't do the to-do list and type it into the computer. 99.9% of the time, it doesn't work. There is a connection in your body between your brain and your fingers.
And so that physical part, that physical part of writing it here, writing the note down, yes. Right? There's an action that happens as it comes out of the brain into on my desk at any given time. There is a binder on there that has those ideas that are written out there. And look, I may not ever see them again, but literally just the physical practice of writing them out somehow or another makes them real. I can go back a year and look through those books and see how many of those things come true. And it's literally like that. There's something about taking it out of the brain, right, and bring it into the physical universe that somehow anchors it as an idea that should grow. Yeah,
and when you look at when people ask, well, you've got a big idea, how do I break this down? How do I eat an elephant in one step? You can't do that. You got to take bite by bite. You'll eventually eat the elephant. So it's a case of this step-by-step approach first starts with a vision. Number two, at breaking it down on a 6-month, 1-year basis, and you have a goal in mind off that vision of what you need to achieve. But within that goal is the context of weekly requirements and daily requirements in order to achieve that goal. So you can look a week from today. And here's a great example, Anthony, in helping the entrepreneurs out there. Write this down. Take our advice, Anthony. Write this down step by step on a daily basis and see what you achieved. Look back on each day, cross out that which you achieved versus that which you were distracted, that you didn't achieve anything. And you'll realize very quickly that you're either in neutral or you're in reverse. Are you achieving what you need to achieve? Because 90% of the time, again, I use that number, but it's true, is that these entrepreneurs can't tell us, Anthony, if I'm moving forward or if I'm in neutral. I just feel like I'm busy. I says, well, what the hell does that mean? I says, if you've got a goal to achieve this within a year, what resources are you using to help you achieve that goal? How are you moving towards getting those resources on board? how are you on a step-by-step basis, on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly basis, achieving that goal and marching towards executing that vision that you do have? What it does is, if you don't do this, Anthony, it's going to lead to frustration and burnout, because you just never achieved anything that you're looking at. You become not a brand, but you move to a commodity, imitating other people, because you have no original ideas and you're always behind. And as a result of that, you got to copy what your competitors are doing. And I've never been with a brand where we've copied. We've always innovated, and we've moved forward as a result of innovation. And we always adapted technologies that allowed us to move ahead. And so those are principles that may be simple to you and I, Anthony, but I tell you, the entrepreneurs that are out there, read books from Napoleon Hill, from Brian Tracy. Read books, get out of the Netflix zombieism that people are in, and put more time towards focus, concentration. Read books that will actually provide value to you.
I have found that reading books has become one of my. Last night I was reading a great book by a buddy of mine, Dan Beatty. It's called The No Ego Policy. It's a great book, and it really takes me through his life stories. And really, what you get about it is, when I read, like I never was one of those guys that could sit there and do meditation very well. Right. Maybe when I'm in prayer, I can spend a moment where I can speak to my higher power in a way that I can I have a glimpse of that. But whenever I really sit down there and try the whole yoga stuff, it's not my thing. But when I read, there's something about training my brain to read those black letters, right? To follow the words and comprehend it. There's been times when I started reading where I started reading the first word. By the time I got to the second word or third word, I forgot the first word. And that practice of reading and then going back and rereading that until I really digested it has brought me the best ability to give me focus. Right. So today I can be in a room where there's lots of things going on, no matter what happens in here. And I can be with a guest, or I can be with a podcast guest or employee, or I can be with somebody, and I can really focus on their ideas.
Yeah.
And that's a training, right? In a world where death scrolling, it's just boom, 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 boom. That's addiction. That's not training, right? Some of us think, oh my God, I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much. And I'm not saying it's completely bad, because there is something about that I do believe, we've been given for a reason, right? Some way have trained the brain a little bit faster. But if you want to be able to concentrate and solve big ideas, you need a little bit longer road. You need a little bit longer capacity to really concentrate.
Yeah. I found the best dopamine is actually executing a vision.
That's right. That's right.
There's nothing worse than having an intangible vision that never becomes commercialized. And I think when entrepreneurs do that, it just leads to this frustration. But I do find, even with reading books, Anthony, that to your point, and it kind of goes towards the same. I kind of look at this flow of what I've seen with visionaries through studies, books that I've written, as well as those that I've worked with, is that there's this, not only this focus time, but there's always this connection between mind and fingertips. And with books, when you read books, one of the best strategies for reading books is write down highlights, physically writing down highlights. Don't just read a book. To your point, you need to meditate on what you think is important, but summarize the book by writing out verses, things that are important to you. And when you're in trouble, when you're at the threshold of burnout, I always say there's 18 inches between you and your faith, and get down on your knees and call on your higher power, whoever it may be, and they will strengthen you. I've always been a huge believer in that. And again, I like to talk about it as you do, because not a lot of people talk about it. But when you talk to visionaries, when you read on visionaries from Jesus all the way through Socrates to Aristotle, all these are profiled in my book. Alexander the Great was one of the greatest leaders that we've ever seen, military leaders. But he called upon the higher power to help him achieve and conquer countries. How do you think he did that? He was 28 years old, for God's sake. So when you look at that, these are great profiles that we put in the book. But the main thing I want people to understand is that focus, Concentrate on a higher power. Don't lean on just your own power and strength. You don't realize the power that you have in your brain that you're using maybe 0.5% of it. That once you get a mindset that you can achieve, you'll succeed with it.
You know, I go back to where you were talking about where, true pleasure, true happiness, and happiness is kind of a silly word. I think it's a TV word, but true joy, maybe joyitude or gratitude, is in the trudging of the work that you do in service of our higher power, of our community, our families, of of the people that we work for. When I put in the discipline and the hard work, and I don't feed my hedonic nature, right? I mean, look, it's easy to go feed those things. Come on, it's easy to go and feed that hedonic part of me, right? When I stop and create discipline and structure and sacrifice for those that I serve, right? The people that are here, when I put the hours in it, and I don't go out drinking and partying, when I get up in the morning and make sure that the doors are open every single day, that people get paychecks, when I make sure I create an environment of health, wisdom, and character, right? When I serve their families and communities, when I build great teams, that are healthy teams. Like in my past, I spent a lot of time taking people out getting drunk. I mean, hey, Bryan, can you imagine there was a time when I used to hire people and I didn't hire you unless I took you out and got you drunk? Okay, can you imagine? Can you imagine how ridiculous that sounds? Right? I mean, that's the hedonic part.
Not that long ago, was it?
They were talking 10 years ago, right? That was a 10 year ago deal. Today
that's how we celebrated at Oakley. That was a rite of passage.
Yeah, right. It was kind of like this thing that we thought that we can get there. Today, I look at how do I build strong families and communities, right? How can I build the healthiest people, the group of people that work together, right? My want is to bring them real health and vitality through the work that we do, the disciplines, the things that we eat, the structures that we are, the way that we work out, the way that we work on our bodies. Strong people build strong organizations. Strong organizations come up with great ideas that serve our communities. And when we do that, when we serve our customers with that kind of strength, you can't really fail, right? I mean, people, you become palpable. The customers feel it. They see it. They know that you're not just, money centric. You're, they can trust you, right? You're of character, of sound mind and character. And then, those are the brands that succeed. When you look at Steve Jobs, he's got commitment to the ease and use and structures that make it easy for anybody to operate, right? The way he created that brand is that my grandmother could turn on an Apple phone and be able to turn on hello, right there. How many of us turn it on? Hello, right? We can get the next thing, right? Smile, turn your face this way, right? He made it so his commitment to making it ease of use, get rid of all the confusion, just, the discipline of saying no, right? Let's just talk about that a little bit. The discipline of saying no, right? Hey, look, that Apple phone could have a million other things on it, right? But the discipline of saying no to it.
Yeah, it's very important because there's a character. I don't know, say it's a flaw, but sometimes it's a character flaw in entrepreneurs. But it's a good character flaw is that we want to do everything, and we never say no. And I'm guilty of that. And there are certain things when you have to look yourself in the mirror and go, is this something that's going to further the cause of where our company or brand wants to go? Is it going to enlighten people that are around me? Is it going to be building trust and authentication with those that are going to drive us towards this vision that we've set for the company, brand, and who or family it could be? And because there's not an infinite amount of time. We talked about earlier, Anthony, when we were talking the Kenny Chesney song, where I said, you look at your life as an hourglass. You can't flip it over and start again. The sand is flowing. Make sure that everything that you do moves towards the goal, both personally and professionally, of who you want to be and what you want to do. And don't do things you don't have a passion around. I mean, just say no. And, and you talk about Steve and what you talked about with what I call foundational principles of leaders, this passion, this authentication, this character. And these are all things that lead to not only great brands and companies and products, because it emboldens them to fail. And most people say, it's an oxymoron word that I use there, but it's so true. You can never succeed without failure. And that's why I get so frustrated many times with entrepreneurs or companies where they don't fail. There's a great quote from Tom Peters, fail faster, succeed sooner. And it's just the principle of authentication. And as a leader, it bleeds through to your team. It bleeds through to your family when you go home at night. You can't fake it and succeed in this world that we live in. You have to be authentic, and everything around you blends around that trust. And if you're not authentic, it breaks the trust with your family and with your team. And as a result of that, the loyalty goes away, not only from a customer perspective, but also from a team perspective, and also from a family perspective. You need to be who you are. And if there are things and traits that are weaknesses, work on those weaknesses to make those strengths that other people can't compete with.
That's where the leader has to hold the high watch for the group, right? Where they hold the vision and the high watch, right? Because saying no and keeping people, every day someone walks in my office, blah, 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 blah. We got this idea. They got that idea. I want to do that. I'm like, look, my job most of the time is to kill the distractions, right? I try to get off. I know that it sounds like a good idea, but my job is to keep you focused on our core mission. Look, our goal here is to build ground up buildings in 30 days. If we're not gearing everything towards that, delivering on a promise of being able to execute construction in a flawless manner, right? So that our customers can do what they do, right? They focus on what they do, right? And we handle their development for them. We build up for them. We handle that. If we can't focus on that, but what about if we did this? Well, what if we do that? Look, those aren't our brands. That's not what we do. We help multi-unit clients. For us, we build brands. We build lots of very fast-growing brands. And the only way to do that is I can't go and build the one-up hospital for somebody. I can't, every time a sales guy walks in or business development guy wants to come in, hey, I got a hospital they want us to bid on. No. We don't build hospitals. We build multi-unit clients. Right? Here's why. If they're going to build 25 or more a year, that's the brand to focus on. Or what kind of clients do we work on? Well, we work on this type of project. Right? Now, every single time they walk in, and look, they mean it out of love. They're not doing it out of malevolence. They think it's they're great ideas. And the same thing is that if I can't help guide them, right? Because my want is to be able to serve those multi-unit clients faster. Right. I want them to be able to know that we can execute faster than anybody out there. We can get them from dirt to dishes faster than anybody out there. And how do we do that? We've said no to all the other ideas that are out there, and we focus them on, and the AI products that we do and the vision that we have, everything that we do points to turning over stores in 30 days. Now, are we there yet? Nope, not there yet. But here, everything that we work on here at CDO Group is all about pointing the compass at building stores in a much more predictable delivery, that we want to go from dirt to dishes in 30 days. And if it fits that mantra, great. That's what we should be doing. If it doesn't fit that mantra, we're probably being distracted. And all I can tell you is that every time I'm distracted, it takes us off of the, it takes us off of kilter.
Yeah. I'm blessed to work with the young entrepreneurs, Anthony. I know you have those in your audience as well. Those that have aspiring ideas, and it could be a young entrepreneur. For me, it could be an 80-year-old. That's a great idea, right? So yeah, sure. For me, we come across, you and I are very blessed that we can provide advice. I call myself many times the gray hair when you walk in the room. Like, listen, there hasn't been any barriers I haven't come across in my lifetime that I probably couldn't warn you on. And I was blessed in the very beginning of my career when I went to start my own apparel company. I didn't really know anything about apparel. I'm coming out of the defense industry. I've got a technical degree. I need marketing, sales, and I quickly learned through a lot of bruising and scars and barriers through somebody who had been there with Quicksilver that he quickly taught me what I needed to achieve and what was important, and not to deal with the distractions.
The more focus I get, if every team member can explain the strategy in one sentence, look, if everybody on the team can explain that, and I believe it or not, I think I'm one of those guys who really harps on this conversation over and over again. And I bet you right now, you walk out of my organization, you'll find that I'm still missing on it. You're never going to be perfect at it. I mean, there's just so many different things. There's so many things coming at each and every one of our employees today. The people that work for us, they are getting bombarded. I mean, in a world where Let's go back. Just imagine I gave this cell phone to my grandfather. He'd blow snot out of his brain trying to figure out how to operate. I mean, like, what is this thing of the gods, right? And every single person that works for us today, somewhere between them and their computer screen, is a phone. Just the data coming off of that thing all day long is enough to make your brain, to fill up a 40-hour work week.
Yeah. And I have another story with these entrepreneurs that are just starting up, which is the distraction side of it, is that when I was running my apparel company, and I'm fortunate now to be on the board of UCLA's Innovation Entrepreneurship Program, UCI's, also their Innovation Entrepreneurship Program here in Southern Cal. And I come across these young entrepreneurs, and I tell you, it energizes you, Anthony, to come across these young kids that have these great ideas. But there's where it ends, right? Is they say, hey, I've got a great idea. And hey, there's this beauty around, hey, I want to start up an apparel company. And I say, don't, and my first words out to them, I go, don't do it. Because I know all that's involved, having been from ground zero to where we're at today, all that's involved. And what it does is it opens up a question, Anthony, when you say don't do it. I mean, what does that do to an entrepreneur? That anybody has this great idea is what it does is I get tired of these shows like Shark Tank and its immediate success and bullshit of, hey, I get $10 million out of the gate. That's not entrepreneurship. If you've got an idea and you're starting from ground zero, the first thing that should come out of somebody you're getting advice from should be, no, don't do it. And because it opens up other questions. Well, why shouldn't I do it? Versus, yeah, you should do it. I think you would be really successful with this product. Doesn't help an entrepreneur. What it does is you need to talk to people like ourselves that have been through the grinder of what it takes. You need to be a great marketer. You need to be a great salesperson. You need to be great at finance. You need to be great on authentication, passion, vision, all of those things combined. Think of the people that we've come across that actually have that. And that's what they need. They don't have $10 million coming out of the gate. So you need to be authentic with them, help them understand all that's involved before they delve into it. There's a reason 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, 80% of the next fail in the next 5 years. So it's just a failure rate that you need to have them understand. Go into this grinder understanding how you need to survive first and then thrive.
Well, if you're not willing to outgrind everybody else, don't become an entrepreneur. Yeah. Go get a job. Go get a job. If you want to be able to go work 40 hours a week, and you want to be able to have quality of life, you want to be able to have yourself be, create work-life balance. Great. Go work for somebody else. You are not going to get it done. Entrepreneurs do not have work-life balance. They may find a way to do it, but I'm telling you right now that when it work's there, you grind. When the work's not there, you grind more. And in order to be successful, you have got to outwork everybody that's out there. This whole idea that I'm going to find some, they're not entrepreneurs. They've never been in the game. They're fooling themselves, right? There's no way to grow a great business without putting the time and effort in. Now, the next part of it is really start to get clarity, right? The clarity will really, as you build clarity on the ideas and things that you want to work on, right? This is what we're trying to achieve, and stick to that. Because young entrepreneurs, you got so many different things. I got ideas. Great, right? Focus on one, right? Make a choice to pick that one. Be intentional about that one. Create a period of time that you're going to focus on that one, right? Because in a world where all of a sudden, look, another shiny object, you're not going to put the work into it because that those ideas take an enormous amount of energy to get out of the atmosphere. If you go look at the space shuttle or any of these big rocket ships, the amount of effort that it takes to get from ground level to out of the atmosphere, right? And once we're out in the atmosphere, it takes a lawnmower worth of gasoline to move it, right? Small little spurts can move it, dramatically. But that's what happens to small companies, right? Young companies need a tremendous amount of energy. And you as the entrepreneur have got to be willing to do all those things that Bryan was just talking about. If you're not going to get up in the morning and be the business development guy, the product development guy, the payroll and the staff, until you can start to backfeed those people and create vision for them, right? Where each person on that team knows, they're really more accountable for the outcomes, right? So the people that are on that, if they're your business development guys or your accounting people, whatever their role is, if they get really clear about what are the matrix that are the outcomes that we want to achieve in this department, as long as they have that, now they can be really successful, right? You can make all the rules you want and all the SOPs you want, and you get it. All those are needed, but I can tell you that's not what drives the company. Outcome and having people commit to the outcome. Look, if for us, I was having this conversation with our estimating team the other day, and one of the young ladies was talking about, hey, I got to go do this at 4:00. I go, great. Here, you can do that at 4:00, but do we have the subs we need to turn in a proper bid? And if we don't stop work then. We stop work when we get what we need to turn in a proper bid. And sometimes that hurts to say that to somebody. But if they don't get connected to that outcome, what's going to happen is the team will break down. It's not workable, right? If the team's not committed to the outcome. And then what happens is shame kicks in, right? Because we lost the bid. We didn't get enough projects in. We don't have the workflow or the cash flow to be able to support the business development team, right? Now we got to let people go. And that's that cycle that happens with teams all day long, right? You wonder why you go through people and why you can't keep the cash flow going. It's because you haven't committed to an outcome. The outcome is finding for us in the construction world, is finding the best subs for the right project at the right price that are, fully vetted out with their, scopes and their abilities, and make sure we don't have scope gap. In your world, it may be something completely different, but what is that? And do your people have, accountability to an outcome, or are they committed to, their time?
Well, I think it kind of comes full circle, Anthony, when we talk about vision, right? We started out with vision and we talked about what does that encompass and how do you achieve it? And what it does also is that it builds this trickle-down effect of a visionary leader that has the ability to see the future, number one. Number two, they have a passion around what they're looking to achieve, and they put resources, team leaders around them that allow them to execute it. And they're humble when the product actually gets commercialized. And it kind of goes towards your point of, if you stick to your passion, you're authentic, and you don't take shortcuts. And whether it's COVID, whether it's an event that sidetracks your company, you never lose sight of what your original vision was. And we had a story back in the day when Quicksilver and the entire action sports industry had gone south. But Bob McKnight, who's a friend of mine and one that I reached out to in the very beginning of my apparel career, I said, I was humble enough to know I don't know anything. I know enough to know I don't know anything. So that's the other advice I'll give to entrepreneurs also. Don't be humble enough to know what you don't know. And if you're great at finance, you're probably not great at marketing. There's very few people that have that combination. And Bob stuck to his principles. And as a result of that, yes, he lost money through that transition storm. What do we call this storm period? But all of the independent retailers remembered Quicksilver for what they did for them through that rough period, because he stuck to his principles that this is the most important customer that we have. And that's what you have to think of when you're looking at building longevity and loyalty with your customers, but it also builds loyalty with your team internally. That you think of the amount of issues, complaints, customer service, turnover you have internally if you're not authentic and stick to your passion, and you're constantly up and down. And I call it this, you're going to have this switchback leadership, I call it. You're never going to have a clear path to your vision, but never lose sight of what your destination is. You're going to go back and forth throughout your path to achieving your vision, but understand, never lose sight of what that destination point is. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs, they stop. As soon as they take a left turn, Anthony, they stop. And they try to take a shortcut to the success, and it never works because they're not authentic and they don't have the passion, and they're trying to take shortcuts, and it's not authentic to their team. And as a result, they lose loyalty and the ability to bring new team members on because others talk. And we're in this, we go back to the 2-second principle of, hey, it takes us what, 10 seconds to go on and see a review of a company. Leadership's not authentic. They don't say what they're going to do. They stick to one vision and then they change it. They look for another career path. They're not interested. They don't have the humility that they should have. So all of these things kind of full circle of what we're talking about is all built off. Think about that. It's all built off this foundation of what? This pinnacle of vision, that people stick to their vision. And we can use Steve as an example because he executed that vision, and we're fortunate enough through books and readings and videos. And if you haven't seen the life of Steve Jobs, just listen to the Stanford graduation ceremony speech that he gave. I don't know if your listeners take 10 minutes to listen to it, and it'll give you an idea of what a visionary looks like and what his regrets are as he gone through that vision, what he should have done and what he wanted to do. So those are things that I feel are super important as we talk about that full circle of what vision encompasses and how you achieve that as a visionary.
I got to tell you, it's awesome that we get on here together and we go through it. For all you entrepreneurs that are out there, what I really want you guys to do is go check out Bryan's books. Bryan, we're going to put a link to them down below. We got the 2 and 3 books. We got a third one coming out here shortly, but we got the Visionary brand, right?
Yep, the Visionary brand, and we've got 1 and 2. Shamelessly, here's what they look like: Visionary brand, Visionary leader.
And we'll have the links to both of those right down here at the bottom right now. And we'll also have a link to Bryan's website if you guys want to go there. Every day you guys are asking me, what can I do? The answers. Reach out to Bryan and his group. Look, Bryan's not putting that out there because he gets a toaster for every one of you guys that sign up. He really is the kind of guy that wants to help grow entrepreneurs. He's authentic. He's real. What he does is grow entrepreneurs. It's exciting to have him on. You got a chance right now to get a relationship with him through the podcast. Click the link down below. Send a note over to Bryan and his team, and really help grow your brand and your vision and yourself as a leader. So, Bryan, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Anthony.
Hey, audience, last week we had another breakthrough, and I'm just so grateful for every one of you guys. We had 130,000 plus downloads. It was just crazy just how many of you guys are here, been on this journey with us. I would just ask that we notice there's still a bunch of you that did not, were not subscribers at the end of the podcast. If you could take a second and just like and subscribe, those numbers do make a difference where we can get guys like Bryan to come on the show. Those numbers do make a big difference. So if you could do that right now, it just supports all of us and the guys in the background, Jonathan and the team that are back there working hard to find great guests. So if you could do that now for me, I would be so grateful. And as always, thanks for listening.